Detroit City, Michigan, United States of America. Imagine a marriage where love turns into a deadly obsession. A seemingly ordinary couple with an extraordinary age gap, their love story captivated neighbors, but beneath the surface lay a truth far more chilling. What could drive a man to destroy the very person he vowed to protect? In this episode, we uncover a tragic story of betrayal, control, and violence that shocked an entire community. On a warm August evening in 2022, a quiet Detroit neighborhood became the epicenter of a tragedy that no one saw coming. At the heart of the story were Marcus Thompson, a 29-year-old hairstylist, and his wife, Evelyn Thompson, a successful 60-year-old entrepreneur. Their marriage, unconventional to some due to their age difference, had been the subject of whispers and speculation. But beneath the surface of their seemingly ordinary lives lay a storm brewing. A storm that would erupt into violence, leaving one of them dead and the other facing the weight of justice. Evelyn was a woman admired by many in her community. She had built a chain of beauty salons from nothing, transforming them into spaces where people not only came for a service, but left feeling empowered. She was known for her generosity, her mentorship, and her unwavering belief in the potential of others. To those who knew her, Evelyn's relationship with Marcus seemed like another example of her giving nature. She had met Marcus when he was looking for work, and their connection quickly blossomed. Despite their age gap, they married after a whirlwind romance. But Marcus's charm masked a troubled past. There were whispers of violent relationships and restraining orders, but nothing concrete ever seemed to stick. Evelyn, with her compassionate nature, believed in his potential for change. She saw in him the promise of a future, not the shadows of his past. However, friends and family began to notice cracks in the facade. Arguments became more frequent, and Evelyn's once radiant confidence started to dim. She dismissed concerns with a reassuring smile, but those closest to her could sense something was wrong. The events of August 15, 2022, would confirm their worst fears. What started as another quiet evening turned into a night that would forever alter the lives of everyone who knew Marcus and Evelyn. As the truth of their marriage unraveled, it became clear that this was not just a case of a relationship gone wrong. It was a tragedy, with warning signs that had been ignored for far too long. Evelyn Thompson was a woman who stood out in her community. She grew up in Detroit, a city with a deep history of culture, music, and resilience. Detroit had its struggles, but it was also a place of strength, much like Evelyn herself. She came from a humble background and built a life that inspired everyone who knew her. She was hardworking, kind, and determined to make a difference. Evelyn's dream was to open a beauty salon, and she worked hard to make that dream a reality. Starting with just one small shop, she eventually grew her business into a chain of salons across the city. These weren't just places to get a haircut or style. People came to Evelyn's salons to feel good about themselves, to gain confidence, and to experience her warm, welcoming energy. Evelyn was always there with a smile, ready to listen and offer advice. For her, the salons were more than a business. They were her way of giving back to the community. Many people looked up to Evelyn. She had a reputation for helping others, especially young women who needed guidance or a second chance. She offered jobs to people who might have struggled to find work elsewhere, teaching them not just how to style hair, but also how to be confident and independent. She was like a mentor to so many, always encouraging others to be their best. Evelyn's salons became a safe place for people in her neighborhood, a bright spot in their lives. One day, Marcus Thompson walked into one of Evelyn's salons. He was looking for a job, and Evelyn saw something in him. Marcus was 29 years old, much younger than Evelyn, who was 60 at the time. He was charming and confident, with a natural talent for hairstyling. Marcus had a way of making people feel comfortable and appreciated. Evelyn noticed his potential and decided to hire him. As they worked together, Marcus and Evelyn grew closer. They began to spend more time together outside of work, and their connection deepened. Before long, they were in a relationship. The age gap didn't seem to matter to Evelyn. She saw something special in Marcus, and he appeared to care deeply for her. They decided to get married after a short time of dating. To many people, their relationship was unexpected, but Evelyn didn't care about other people's opinions. She was happy, and that was all that mattered to her. Marcus seemed like a fresh start, someone who brought energy and passion into her life. But what Evelyn didn't know, or perhaps chose not to focus on, was Marcus's past. Marcus had a troubled history with relationships. He had been in situations where his partners accused him of being controlling and even violent. Court records showed restraining orders filed against him, but Marcus had managed to avoid any serious consequences. He left those relationships behind and moved to Detroit to start over. To Evelyn, Marcus was someone who deserved a second chance, and she believed in giving people the opportunity to change. At first, their marriage seemed like a happy one. Evelyn continued running her salons, and Marcus became part of her world. But over time, people began to notice small changes in their relationship. Marcus started asking Evelyn a lot of questions about where she was going, who she was talking to, and why she hadn't called him back. He would show up at the salon unexpectedly, watching her as she worked. To some, it seemed like Marcus was being protective, but to others, his behavior felt controlling. Evelyn's friends and family started to worry about her. They noticed that she wasn't as happy or confident as she used to be. Evelyn, who had always been strong and independent, seemed distracted and more reserved. Her usual glow was fading, and it wasn't hard to see that something was wrong. When her friends asked her about it, Evelyn brushed off their concerns. She said everything was fine and that Marcus was just a caring husband. But the signs were there. Marcus was becoming more controlling. He wanted to know every detail of Evelyn's day and didn't like her spending too much time with other people. Friends who visited the salon said Marcus often interrupted conversations or stood too close, making them uncomfortable. Evelyn, who had always been outgoing, started to withdraw. She kept her struggles private, even as those around her noticed the change. Detroit, the city where they lived, reflected the challenges Evelyn faced. It was a city of contrasts, full of creativity and resilience, but also marked by hardship and struggle. Evelyn's salons were like a beacon of hope in this environment. They gave people a place to feel good and escape their worries, even if only for a short time. But even as Evelyn created this positive space for others, she was dealing with her own growing troubles. The age gap in their marriage may have added to the tension. Evelyn was an accomplished woman who had built her life and career before meeting Marcus. She was financially secure and confident in who she was. Marcus, on the other hand, was still trying to find his footing. Some people thought this imbalance made Marcus feel insecure. He might have seen Evelyn's independence as a threat, and his insecurities turned into controlling behavior. Despite everything, Evelyn remained committed to her marriage. She believed in Marcus and wanted their relationship to work. She often talked about the future they were building together, showing her hope and optimism. But the people closest to her couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. They saw the small red flags, but no one could have predicted where those signs would lead. Evelyn's salons continued to thrive, and she poured her energy into her work. Clients noticed that she wasn't quite herself, but she still greeted everyone with a smile. Evelyn was the kind of person who put others first, even when she was struggling. But behind the scenes, her life was becoming more complicated, and the tension in her marriage was growing. Evelyn's story is one of strength and generosity, but also one of hidden pain. She gave so much to others, but she may not have had the support she needed in her most difficult moments. Her community loved and respected her, but even they didn't see the full picture. What happened to Evelyn was a tragedy, one that showed how even the strongest people can face struggles they don't share with anyone. Detroit, with its mix of beauty and challenges, mirrored Evelyn's life. She was a light in her community, a person who brought hope and positivity to those around her. But even the brightest lights can be dimmed when faced with too much darkness. Evelyn's story reminds us that we should never ignore the signs that someone might be in trouble, no matter how strong they seem. The evening of August 15, 2022, began like many others on the quiet street where Marcus and Evelyn Thompson lived. It was a warm summer night, and neighbors were settling into their routines, but the peace didn't last. Around 9:30 p.m., the sound of raised voices shattered the calm. Several neighbors later recounted hearing loud arguments coming from the Thompsons' home, angry, heated words that carried through the night air. It wasn't unusual for the couple to have disagreements, but this time the shouting didn't fade away. Instead, it stopped abruptly, leaving an eerie silence in its place. At 10:42 p.m., a call came into 911. Marcus Thompson, speaking in a hurried and tense voice, told the dispatcher that his wife was unresponsive. When emergency responders arrived minutes later, they found the front door of the house slightly ajar. The scene that greeted them inside was one of chaos. The living room bore the unmistakable signs of a violent struggle. Furniture was overturned, and a broken lamp lay shattered on the floor. A picture frame, once displaying a photo of Marcus and Evelyn on their wedding day, was cracked and discarded near the couch. In the middle of the room lay Evelyn Thompson, motionless. The carpet beneath her was soaked in blood. Multiple stab wounds covered her torso and chest, clear evidence of a brutal attack. Her hands bore deep cuts, defensive wounds that told the story of someone desperately trying to protect herself. The murder weapon, a kitchen knife, was found near Evelyn's body. It was covered in blood, and its placement suggested it had been discarded in haste. Officers noted blood spatter patterns on the walls and furniture, further indicating the intensity of the struggle. The violence of the attack was evident in every detail of the room, painting a grim picture of what had unfolded. Marcus was still in the house when police arrived. He had minor injuries, cuts on his hands and forearms, that he claimed were the result of Evelyn attacking him first. His demeanor alternated between calm and distraught, but his explanation raised immediate questions. Marcus told officers that an argument had escalated unexpectedly and that he had acted in self-defense. However, the physical evidence in the room didn't support his story. Blood spatter analysis conducted at the scene suggested that Evelyn had been moving away from Marcus when the fatal wounds were inflicted. The defensive wounds on her hands and arms showed that she had tried to block the knife, but the sheer number of stab wounds indicated sustained and deliberate aggression. These were not the actions of someone defending themselves. They were the actions of someone intent on causing harm. Neighbors were questioned in the hours that followed, and their accounts added to the growing suspicion. Several reported hearing Evelyn's voice pleading before the shouting stopped. One neighbor, who lived directly across the street, recalled hearing a loud crash, followed by silence. No one reported seeing anyone else enter or leave the house during the critical time frame, ruling out the possibility of a third party being involved. As investigators pieced together the events of that night, more details began to emerge. Marcus's injuries were consistent with defensive wounds inflicted by Evelyn during the struggle, further contradicting his claim of self-defense. The location of the knife and the pattern of bloodstains indicated that the final, fatal blow was delivered while Evelyn was already on the ground. The autopsy report later confirmed that Evelyn had suffered multiple stab wounds, with the fatal injury piercing her heart. The forensic pathologist noted that the attack was sustained and forceful, suggesting a high level of anger or intent. These findings aligned with the evidence collected at the scene and painted a harrowing picture of Evelyn's final moments. By the end of the night, Marcus was taken into custody. His story, though detailed, didn't match the evidence, and the inconsistencies raised serious doubts about his version of events. As news of Evelyn's death spread, the community was left in shock. She had been a beloved figure, a woman who had dedicated her life to helping others. And now she was gone in the most violent of ways. The crime scene itself was meticulously processed. Forensic teams spent hours collecting evidence, photographing every angle of the living room, and bagging items for further analysis. The kitchen knife was sent to the lab for fingerprint and DNA testing. Blood samples were collected from various locations in the room to map out the sequence of events. Even the cracked wedding photo was taken into evidence, a haunting reminder of a relationship that had ended in tragedy. Evelyn's death marked the loss of a bright light in her community, and the details of her final moments only deepened the heartbreak. The home she had once filled with warmth and generosity had become the site of a violent and senseless act. What remained now were questions about Marcus's true motives, about the warning signs that had been missed, and about the kind of justice Evelyn deserved. Immediately after the discovery of Evelyn Thompson's body, Marcus Thompson was taken into custody. His demeanor at the time was calm but calculated, shifting between expressions of grief and vague justifications for his actions. To the officers on the scene, his explanation raised more questions than answers. Marcus claimed Evelyn had attacked him first during an argument, forcing him to act in self-defense. He repeated this claim several times as he was transported to the station for questioning. Detectives began their investigation with the crime scene, which had already provided a wealth of clues. The overturned furniture, broken glass, and blood spatter told a story of chaos and violence. But as forensic experts carefully examined the evidence, inconsistencies began to emerge. The blood spatter patterns suggested that Evelyn had been moving away from Marcus when she was attacked, a detail that directly contradicted his claim of self-defense. The defensive wounds on Evelyn's arms and hands further painted a grim picture of her final moments. She had clearly fought to protect herself, but the number and placement of the stab wounds indicated a sustained and deliberate assault. As the investigation progressed, detectives began looking into Marcus's background. What they uncovered was a troubling history of abusive relationships. Court records revealed that Marcus had been the subject of multiple restraining orders filed by former partners. These women described a pattern of behavior that included jealousy, controlling tendencies, and outbursts of anger. In one case, a former girlfriend stated that Marcus had threatened her during an argument, leaving her too afraid to contact the police. Another described being isolated from her friends and family, with Marcus monitoring her every move. While these incidents had never led to criminal charges, they provided a disturbing insight into the man Evelyn had married. Interviews with Evelyn's friends and family further highlighted the warning signs that had been present in their relationship. Those closest to Evelyn described her as a strong and independent woman who had gradually withdrawn from her usual social circles after marrying Marcus. Friends recalled instances where Evelyn seemed distracted or hesitant to talk about her marriage. One close friend recounted a conversation in which Evelyn had expressed concern about Marcus's controlling behavior, but had dismissed it as something she could manage. She always believed in seeing the good in people, the friend explained. I think she thought she could help him change. The more investigators uncovered, the clearer the picture became. Marcus's pattern of abusive behavior had been consistent across multiple relationships, and it seemed to have followed him into his marriage with Evelyn. However, the case was far from straightforward. Despite the wealth of circumstantial evidence, there were no direct witnesses to the crime. This posed a significant challenge for the prosecution, who needed to build a case strong enough to hold up in court. Forensic analysis became a critical component of the investigation. Blood spatter experts provided detailed reports that dismantled Marcus's claim of self-defense. The trajectory and distribution of the blood indicated that Evelyn had been retreating, not advancing, at the time of the attack. Additionally, the location of the fatal wounds suggested that she had been on the ground during the final moments of the assault. These findings, combined with the defensive wounds on her hands and arms, painted a harrowing picture of a one-sided attack. The autopsy report corroborated these findings. Evelyn had suffered multiple stab wounds, with the fatal injury piercing her heart. The pathologist noted that the wounds were consistent with a sustained and forceful attack, contradicting Marcus's narrative of a brief, reactive struggle. This evidence became a cornerstone of the prosecution's case, providing a scientific basis to challenge Marcus's claims. As the legal proceedings began, both sides prepared for a contentious trial. The prosecution sought to present Marcus as a man with a history of violence who had escalated to murder. They highlighted his past relationships, his controlling behavior toward Evelyn, and the forensic evidence that undermined his self-defense claim. Meanwhile, the defense team worked to humanize Marcus, portraying him as a man pushed to his limits by a strong-willed partner. They argued that Evelyn's confident and independent personality may have led to conflicts that Marcus was unequipped to handle. The courtroom became a battleground of narratives. Prosecutors called on forensic experts, detectives, and Evelyn's loved ones to testify. Each piece of evidence was scrutinized, and each witness was cross-examined. The defense countered with character witnesses for Marcus, attempting to cast doubt on the prosecution's version of events. They argued that the lack of direct witnesses created room for reasonable doubt, a strategy that aimed to weaken the jury's confidence in the case against Marcus. Throughout the trial, Evelyn's family sat in the gallery, enduring the painful retelling of her final moments. For them, the trial wasn't just about seeking justice. It was about honoring Evelyn's life and ensuring her story was heard. Their presence served as a powerful reminder of the human cost of the crime, a stark contrast to the clinical arguments presented in court. The investigation and trial revealed not only the events of that fateful night, but also the underlying dynamics that had led to such a tragic outcome. Marcus's history, Evelyn's gradual withdrawal, and the missed warning signs all came together to form a narrative that was as heartbreaking as it was cautionary. The question that lingered was whether justice would be enough to bring closure to a community still grappling with the loss of a woman who had given so much. As investigators worked to piece together the events leading to Evelyn Thompson's tragic death, the question of motive loomed large. Why would Marcus Thompson, a man who claimed to love Evelyn, resort to such a brutal act? Theories began to emerge, each shedding light on a relationship that may have been far more complex than it appeared. One possible motive centered around jealousy. In the months leading up to her death, Evelyn confided in close friends about her growing concerns regarding her marriage. She mentioned frequent arguments and expressed doubts about whether the relationship could survive. Friends said she was considering separation, a decision that may have set Marcus on edge. To him, Evelyn leaving wasn't just about losing his wife, it was about losing the life he had come to depend on. Evelyn had built a successful career, creating a chain of beauty salons that not only supported her financially, but also made her a respected figure in her community. Marcus, on the other hand, was still finding his way. While he worked alongside Evelyn, it was clear that much of his identity was tied to her success. Friends speculated that Marcus saw Evelyn's independence as a threat to his sense of control. The idea of losing her, and by extension, the life he had grown accustomed to, may have fueled his jealousy to a breaking point. Another theory pointed to financial gain. Evelyn had worked for decades to establish her salons and had accumulated significant assets in the process. Marcus, as her husband, stood to benefit from her wealth. Investigators considered whether money could have been a factor in the crime. Was this a desperate attempt to secure financial stability in the face of a crumbling relationship? Or was it the culmination of a pattern of control, with Marcus viewing Evelyn's success as something he deserved a share of, regardless of her wishes? Psychologists who examined Marcus's behavior suggested deeper, underlying traits that may have contributed to his actions. Experts noted signs of narcissism and a need for control, traits that often manifest in toxic relationships. Marcus's past relationships, marked by jealousy and accusations of violence, painted a picture of someone who struggled to handle feelings of inadequacy or rejection. This behavior wasn't new. It was part of a pattern that had escalated over time. Control, they argued, was at the heart of Marcus's actions. His need to dominate his relationships may have clashed with Evelyn's strong and independent nature. Evelyn was a self-made woman, admired by her community and financially secure in her own right. Marcus, by contrast, may have felt overshadowed, leading to feelings of resentment that festered over time. This imbalance, amplified by their significant age difference, may have played a critical role in the dynamics of their marriage. Which brings us to the question, did the age gap between Marcus and Evelyn contribute to the tensions in their relationship? While Evelyn had years of life experience and a clear sense of who she was, Marcus was still trying to establish his identity. Did this disparity create a power struggle, with Marcus feeling the need to assert dominance in ways that ultimately turned destructive? The answer may never be fully known, but the question remains an important one for understanding the complexities of their relationship. What do you think? Do you believe the age difference played a role in the power dynamics of their relationship? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective could help shed light on this tragic story. The trial of Marcus Thompson was a pivotal moment, not just for Evelyn Thompson's family, but for the entire Detroit community. After weeks of intense testimony, forensic evidence, and emotional recollections, the jury deliberated on the case that had shocked everyone who followed it. The prosecution presented a compelling narrative. Marcus's history of control and violence, the overwhelming forensic evidence, and the heart-wrenching details of Evelyn's final moments. The defense, however, argued that Marcus had acted out of fear, portraying Evelyn as a strong and sometimes overbearing figure in their relationship. The courtroom was packed on the day the verdict was announced. After hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a unanimous decision. Marcus Thompson was found guilty of second-degree murder. As the verdict was read, Evelyn's family clutched one another tightly, tears streaming down their faces. For them, this moment was bittersweet. Justice had been served, but it could never bring Evelyn back. The judge sentenced Marcus to 25 years to life in prison. During sentencing, Marcus showed little emotion, offering a brief and vague apology to Evelyn's family. The judge, however, didn't mince words, emphasizing the calculated nature of Marcus's actions and the profound loss his crime had caused. For Evelyn's loved ones, this sentence marked the end of one chapter, but the beginning of a long journey toward healing. In the weeks following the trial, Evelyn's family took action to honor her legacy. They established the Evelyn Thompson Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting victims of domestic violence. Through the foundation, they aim to provide resources, counseling, and shelter to those in need, hoping to prevent other families from experiencing the pain they had endured. The foundation became a beacon of hope in Detroit, hosting workshops and community events to raise awareness about the warning signs of abuse. The community rallied around Evelyn's family, showing an outpouring of love and support. Vigils were held outside her salons, where hundreds gathered to light candles, share memories, and call for action against intimate partner violence. Evelyn's salons, once a place of beauty and empowerment, became a focal point for her legacy. Flowers, photographs, and heartfelt notes lined the windows, transforming the spaces into living memorials. Evelyn's death also sparked broader conversations about domestic violence in the community. Leaders, activists, and everyday citizens began pushing for stronger protections for victims and increased funding for support services. Evelyn's story served as a powerful reminder that even the strongest individuals can face unseen struggles, and that awareness and intervention are crucial. For Evelyn's family, every step forward with the foundation and the community was a way to keep her memory alive. Her life was a testament to kindness, strength, and resilience, and they wanted to ensure that her tragic death would inspire meaningful change. While Marcus served his sentence, Evelyn's legacy continued to grow, touching countless lives and bringing hope to those who needed it most. The resolution of this case left an indelible mark on Detroit and beyond. It was a painful reminder of the consequences of unchecked violence, but it also showed the power of a community coming together to heal and to fight for justice. Evelyn's story did not end in tragedy. It became a rallying cry for change. Evelyn Thompson's life was one of triumph and resilience, but her death reveals the hidden struggles that so many face behind closed doors. On the surface, she was a successful businesswoman, a community leader, and a source of hope for countless individuals. But her story reminds us that outward appearances can often conceal deep pain. Evelyn's tragic end is a sobering reminder of the silent battles many fight, often without the support or recognition they need. Her case underscores the importance of recognizing and addressing the signs of abusive behavior. Marcus's history of control and violence didn't emerge suddenly. It was part of a pattern, one that Evelyn's friends and family later realized had been visible in subtle ways. Jealousy disguised as concern, controlling tendencies masked as care, and moments of anger excused as stress. All these signs were there, hidden in plain sight. If these signals had been identified earlier, could Evelyn's fate have been different? It's not just about recognizing these signs, though. It's about creating spaces where people feel safe to speak up, to share their experiences without fear of judgment or retaliation. Evelyn's story shows us the devastating consequences of isolation, of feeling as though the challenges in a relationship are something to bear silently. For many victims of abuse, the fear of being judged, misunderstood, or dismissed keeps them trapped in dangerous situations. It is a cycle that communities must work together to break. This case also highlights the need for more open conversations about domestic violence. Too often, the subject remains hidden, shrouded in shame and silence. By bringing these stories to light and discussing them openly, we can start to dismantle the stigma that prevents victims from seeking help. Evelyn's legacy, through the foundation established in her name, is already fostering these conversations and providing tangible support to those in need. But there is so much more to be done. As a community, we have a responsibility to ask difficult questions and take meaningful actions. How can we ensure that victims of abuse feel seen and heard? What resources can we provide to help them escape dangerous situations? How can we educate ourselves and others to recognize the warning signs of control and violence before it's too late? To our audience, what steps can communities take to better support victims of domestic violence? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your suggestions could spark the kind of change that saves lives. Evelyn's story is one of heartbreak, but it is also a call to action. Her life was a beacon of strength and kindness, and her legacy continues to inspire change. Let's honor her memory by committing to create a world where no one has to suffer in silence, where every voice is heard and every life is valued. Evelyn Thompson's story is one of resilience, tragedy, and an urgent call for change. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue to share stories that need to be heard. Stories that raise awareness and spark meaningful conversations. We want to hear from you. Do you believe justice was served in this case? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Every perspective matters, and your voice can help drive the dialogue around the crucial issues highlighted in this story. If you're looking for more, don't miss our next video, a gripping account of another intimate partner violence case where courage and determination change the course of justice. Together, we can shed light on these important stories and work toward a world where no one has to suffer in silence.